What's going on, everybody? All right, so round two, day two, 2 days down. I know that sounds so lame when you compare it to the fact that I was at 44 days without skipping. But nonetheless, you know what? It's day two. We're still going for this 365 days without skipping a day. So let's get started. I'll see you guys in a little bit when I get back. Round two, day two. This has turned into a little bit of a longer challenge, right? So I got to day 44. As I mentioned before, I ended up skipping a day. My counter reset to 0. Today is day 2 from that day that I started again. And, you know, I was thinking about, I was thinking a lot about the impact that this reset has had on me. I'm not gonna lie, there was a part of me on the 45th day that thought about just running and then just not acknowledging my skip. But that would have been a very dishonest thing to do, especially if you're following this channel and you're trying to validate your effort and you're listening to my message. That would have been wrong for me. Because then I would be negating, you know, the difficulty of this challenge. I would be making it seem like it was less difficult than it is. This is not an easy challenge. It's not meant to be. It's meant to challenge you. That's the whole concept of it. It's meant to push you outside of your comfort zone. It's meant to build discipline, to build mental toughness, to build consistency inside of you. And that's the way that it transforms you. The physical transformation is a byproduct. I mentioned this before. You know, if you're walking for 365 days, or if you're reading a book for 365 days, or if you're writing 10 pages for your book every day for 365 days, whatever it is that you're challenging yourself to do, if I'm not honest with you, but there's no reason for you to follow me, because then I'm just full of crap. So, in an effort to stay authentic, I decided against that little voice in my head that said, it's one day, what's the big deal? The big deal is that if I cheat myself, I'm only cheating myself. And I'm doing you a disservice if you're really following this channel and trying to get motivated and trying to stay on point. And so I wanted to be authentic for you and for me. I wanted to own up the challenge 100%. You know, yesterday I talked a little bit about the hippocampus and how the hippocampus part of your brain is this little tiny little section of your brain that it expands when you make it do things that you don't like to do, that you don't want to do, right? Nobody wants to run in 90 degrees. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, I'm so excited, I'm gonna go run in 90-degree weather, or 103-degree weather, or 105-degree weather. I'm gonna go run, when the sun's beating on me. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says that. I'm pretty sure even Goggin has moments where he's like, oh man, this sucks, I really don't want to do it. The difference is that he doesn't pay too much attention to that little voice. He just decides, it's cool, man, I'm going. I don't care that I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it because this is me, this is what I do, this is what we do now, right? I'm not going to be like everybody else. You know, when I was younger, I used to always tell people that I was a very unique individual. And I think it was my way of communicating originality. I've never been one to follow the crowd. I've always been the person that drums to the beat of my own drum. And sometimes my family, my friends, maybe they don't understand why I do things the way that I do them, or why I'm so adamant about my path. And that's okay, because they don't need to understand. Nobody needs to understand. I understand why I do things the way that I do, you know? And it's important for you to understand why you do the things that you do. Some people have asked me, they make comments about my running when I talk to them about it, and they say things like, dude, you make me tired just thinking about it. Like, you're running every single day and you're increasing a mile every month. Like, what is that about? You know, like, why would you want to do this? Like, you're older, you know, and they'll say words. I mean, it's weird. It's like a positive thing with a neg. It always starts with, "Wow, man, good for you." You know, like, that's awesome that you're doing that. It's good to to try to be healthy or to do things like this. But then it follows. The following statements are the ones that are kind of like negs, right? Like little negatives. They start positive, but then they go, "Man, but I get tired just listening to you, man. Like, I would never be able to do that. You know, I'm 50 years old and I don't even think I could run a quarter of a mile, and I don't run very often," or whatever comment they make, you know. And sometimes I get the feeling that they don't understand. Like, they don't understand, you know, my motivation. And I've shared with you guys in earlier videos that I have a lot of motivations. It's not just one, but one of my driving forces is that I want to set an example for my kid. I want my kid to see that the power of discipline, the power of consistency, what happens when you focus on something and you just go after it despite of what anybody may think or what they may say. A lot of things in my life have become about my daughter. You know, I want my daughter to see that I read a lot, so that she develops a passion for reading, so that she develops a passion for learning, and so that when she's out of college, she doesn't just think that that's the end. Because the truth is that college is not the end. Frankly, if you ask me, I think the only value of a college degree is that corporations and companies and businesses, they have developed this monopoly, this crapshoot, and they use that as a qualification for you to even get into interview with companies. That's really it. Because I have always believed that the entire education system is a fraud. You know, a lot of schools, they worry about you being in school, not so much because they care to teach you anything, but more because they want the funding. When you're in public school, that they get funding for every student that they have in their classroom, and so they worry about your attendance. And they don't, if you ever like pay attention to it, if you get great, you know, if you're like an excelling student, but you have absences, but you're testing super high, but maybe you don't go to class all the time, why is that an issue? Because isn't it about the education? If you know the material and you're scoring high, then why are you penalized for not being in class? To me, it doesn't make any sense. And maybe I'm just that stupid. Colleges, they don't care, because they don't care if you don't show up to class, because you're paid. So all they care is you pay the tuition, and if you fail your class or if you graduate from your class, that's on you. But they load you with a ton of classes that you're never gonna use. You're never gonna need. So why, the logic of why you have to take those courses, to me, is absolutely absurd. The only thing I could think of is it justifies them making more money off of you. And that's just, maybe I'm wrong in thinking that way, but that's just something that I think. But nonetheless, we have to go to college and get a degree because if we want to get anywhere in life, it's a requirement. It's like a rite of passage, right? If you have a degree, then you get an interview, and if you get an interview, potentially you get hired if you're looking to work in a decent job. The other option is you go the entrepreneur way and you figure out a way to work for yourself, right? But I think learning is different. Learning is this amazing thing. To have the thirst for knowledge is such an amazing thing because I can tell you, I never stop learning. I am constantly reading about something else, learning about something else, researching something else, wanting to know about something else. And sometimes I go into these rabbit holes of learning pathways where I find a topic that interests me, and then I'll spend a significant amount of time researching it, learning about it. Sometimes it's technology that I start to learn because of my job, but then it captures my attention, and then I just get stuck wanting to learn more and more about it. Sometimes it could be behavior, human behavior types of topics, and sometimes science. Yeah, it just depends. It's just whatever captures my attention. Human dynamics, social dynamics. It's a huge topic for me. I love learning about social dynamics. And the point that I'm trying to make is that whether you go to college or whether you don't, whether you think college is worth the money, or whether you just simply decide, you know what, I'm just going to learn what I want to learn for my own sake and for what I'm interested in doing, right? Whatever you decide to do, whatever you're trying to do, first of all, let me tell you, I recommend college because, like I said, it's a rite of passage. If you don't have a college degree, life is only going to get harder. But if you decide to go in a different direction, regardless whether you grab a college degree or whether you don't, the thirst for knowledge is so important. Anything that you learn is going to bring value to you. It's going to make you that much better, that more dynamic. My mom used to say something kind of interesting. She used to say, for every language that a person learns, it's like being one more, like a clone of that person. Because if you speak, French and Italian and, Greek and Russian, and English, let's say, well, that means that you could be a very functional person in Russia and Italy and Greece, and France and in any English-speaking country. So you're like the value of multiple people just by learning languages. That was kind of like her way of explaining how important it was to speak multiple languages. And I feel it's like that with a lot of things. If you know a lot about technology, you can walk into a room and you can talk to people about technology, and you can, you don't have to be an engineer, but if you understand, at very least conceptually, where technology is going and the things that are out there right now, you can have an interesting conversation with somebody who's neck deep in it. Maybe even learn something from that conversation. Right? Take something away from it. If you know a lot about arts and different artists or different musicians in different eras and art history and things like that, you can walk into an event at an art museum, and then if somebody asks you questions or whatever, you can have a conversation, an educated conversation, and it makes you a dynamic person, right? It makes you that person that can be, you're representing yourself in whatever environment you're in, right? I mean, can you imagine being the person that goes to a museum and has a conversation about Monet and Rembrandt and Picasso in one day, and then the next day goes to a yacht club event and can talk about navigating a vessel, or what it's like to sail, or you know what your favorite types of boats are and why, and and then maybe the next day walk into a technology convention and have a conversation about where technology is going and all the evolution of AI and who's doing what and what software is out there, and the new breakthroughs in this world. I mean, imagine being that person that can just represent yourself in all these different environments. Well, that's the thing about knowledge. The thing is, most people graduate high school and a lot of people think, okay, this is it, high school, I'm done. I'm just gonna go get a job now, and that's the end of it. And if you stop going to traditional school and you didn't go to college, but you made it a point to educate yourself and become a super dynamic, well-rounded person, I think that's okay. But if you graduate high school and your main focus is, what nightclub or what bar you're going to go to, and, you spend, 10 hours of your day playing video games and smoking pot, and your life isn't going anywhere, then it's really kind of a challenge, because as you get older, you're going to find yourself in a place where life has passed you by, and now you're not very competitive in the world. And the sad thing is that a lot of people fall into this category, right? I think the last time I checked, the national average for high school dropouts was like 60%, which that's people that didn't even finish high school, right? And then you have the people that go to college, right? And a lot of times the people that go to college, they get their bachelor's, and out of the percentage of people that actually go to college and get their bachelor's degree, it's a small percentage of people that go from there to go get their master's. But let's just focus on the bachelor's. If you get your bachelor's and that's the end of your education, and you just go and you get a job, and maybe you got a nice little cushy job in a corporation, and you're good at your job, but you stop that learning process, that pushing you to do something that takes you out of your comfort zone, that growth, you stop growing intellectually, well, that's it. You hit a ceiling. Eventually, you're going to find yourself where you become not competitive anymore, because the world's not stopping for anyone, right? The world's not stopping for anyone. The world is evolving. If you're not evolving with the world, you find yourself becoming obsolete. You find yourself unable to function in the world. And if you do go get a master's degree and you advance your education to the traditional sense, and you stop learning when you get a master's, well, eventually the world will become more than that, and you become obsolete. It doesn't matter where you stop learning. If you stop learning, the world will catch up to you and pass you. And that is such an important thing. And when I talk about this challenge, how does this connect? Well, that's the thing. In order for you to continue this process of learning, you have to have the discipline to push yourself, because a lot of times why do I need to read about scientific breakthroughs in the medical world? I'm not a doctor, right? So why am I investing the energy to read about it? And it's easy for your mind to talk you out of it. And then you go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go watch, I'm going to go catch up on my season of The Walking Dead or whatever, right? And so when you find yourself talking yourself away from doing these things that, nobody likes to, for fun, go learn about organic chemistry, right? That's not a fun topic to go learn about. So it's easy to navigate away from it unless you're like super passionate about medicine and like, oh my God, I love the whole cell, whatever. You know, it's very few people that go, yeah, let me go learn organic chemistry because I just want to learn about it, right? So, but I think it's really important, like, how does this 365-day challenge connect? Because it's pushing you. You're pushing yourself to do something that maybe you don't want to do every day. And you're taking yourself out of the comfort zone. And you're making your hippocampus portion of your brain grow, right? How do I know about the hippocampus? Because I'm a geek. And I wanted to learn about it. And so I started reading about it a few years ago, right? Then I heard Doggin talking about how the brain grows when you're doing things you don't want to do, and there's an area that does this, and I was like, interesting. He's talking about the hippocampus. That's kind of an interesting thing. And then I learned through metaphysics books that the hippocampus triggers signals and frequencies that stimulate areas of your brain that no other part of your brain can stimulate, and it actually attracts frequencies and different things into your life. If you're ever been curious about metaphysics and understanding how the energy flows between one person and another and how energy controls so many different things in your life, that's a whole entire world that you can spend your whole life reading about. It's interesting, right? Now, I'm not saying that it's real or it's not real or it works or it doesn't work. That's not the point of this video. What I'm saying is that there's worlds of knowledge out there. But unless you get into the habit of wanting to look for that knowledge and absorb that knowledge and doing things that maybe you don't want to do, like investing time reading about something, right? You're not going to ever open those doors. And what's really interesting to me is that this is what happens with a lot of people. A lot of people, they look at high school like it's the end. Like, oh man, I can't wait to be done with school. Or some people look a little farther and they go, oh man, I can't wait to be done with college, man. Once I graduate college, it's over. I don't want to deal with any more schooling or learning. Or, oh my God, I can't wait to be done with this master's program. Like, this is it, I'm done, right? Or the ones that get their PhD, they're like, okay, fine, I got my PhD, it's over, I'm done. And you know, if there's one thing that I've learned over the course of my life is that anyone who's truly successful in their world of performance, where they work, they never stop learning. Doctors don't just get a doctor's degree and they don't get their doctorate and then like go and never want to learn anything else. As a matter of fact, it's required from them to have so much like ongoing education in their practice. Attorneys, the same way. Laws are constantly changing, so they're constantly learning different laws and how the law affects cases that they're working on, and they're constantly, researching case law and learning how those case laws have impacted other cases that could potentially help them with their current case and whatnot. And it's like that for everything. I mean, I know for myself, I can tell you that if you have a real estate license, you have to do continued education every year so you can renew your license. And it's like that for a lot of things. I know, for example, like if you have a Series 7's license, you have to do continued education on a regular basis. If you have a insurance license, you have to do continued education on a serious basis, and every year you have to do so many hours of schooling, and you have to go and pass these tests, and then you submit those results in order to renew your license. If you have a there's even in the tech world, if you have a certification for some process and procedures or project management or Scrum Master or ITIL or whatever it is, you have to kind of like go through this continued education and renew these certifications every so many years, every couple of years. So the learning never stops. The learning never stops. And if that's your area of work, let's say you're a project manager and that's your area of work and you're just having to do this learning every so often to kind of bring yourself up to speed on what's new in that world, that's great. But why stop there? Like, why stop there? The more you know, the more powerful you are, the more dynamic you are. The more disciplined you are, and the more you challenge yourself, the more you grow. The more you grow, the stronger you become. And I can't stress enough how much I appreciate that I like learning about new things. That's probably the one thing that I think is one of the most important things about me. And as far as like challenging yourself to do something every day, I can't tell you how much this will change you, because I failed. I failed you. I failed me. I screwed up. I skipped a day. And I reset the clock. And I restarted again for my round 2. But the change that I had in 44 days of running every day was night and day. And where I am today on day 2 is night and day from where I started. So the transformation, regardless of whether I reset the clock or not, is happening. And I think as humans, we need to understand that maybe perfection, maybe the ability to do it 365 days without a day off, that's just the challenge, right? We might make a mistake, but the challenge is to try to get you to do the 365 days of whatever you're doing without taking a day off. And if you're challenging yourself, you're growing. And if you're growing, you're becoming more dynamic. And as you're becoming more dynamic, you can apply this to other areas of your life. So I invite you to take on 365 days on the 365-day challenge for yourself. No matter what it is. I would love to hear about it. And I want to thank you for following this channel and just checking in on me. I want to thank you for, wanting to see how this transformation journey turns out. And I hope you're liking the messages and you subscribe. But with that, I'm going to wish you a wonderful day and get out there and do something challenging for yourself. Take care.